Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Horse with No Name podcast. We have reached the 2017-18 academic year in our Decade in Review project, and we are happy to be at this year. Lots of great wins on the floor, both individuals as well as teams. And I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Bob McMichael. And Bob, the Horse with No Name podcast, once again sponsored by The Grill. Have you been to The Grill lately?
I have not been there lately, but now we need to get there again. So have you been there lately?
No, Rod was there a couple of days or weeks ago, and he asked if I wanted something. I had already brought lunch, so I had to, unfortunately, had to decline. But I hope to never have to do that ever again. So
there we go.
Anyway, so the 2017-18 year was a great year for a lot of our programs, like we said, and we are joined by one of our better athletes of that year and one of our friends here on the program as well. To both Bob and I, we are joined by Derek Bigley tonight. Derek, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
We are doing very well. Thank you. Yes, it was a great year for men's volleyball in the 2017-18 academic year. The team excelled on the floor. They were great guys off the floor, and a large culmination of a 4-year, I'm not even sure roller coaster fits the description because you'd have fallen off the tracks after that first year. So something of the 4 years, but it ended very well for you guys in that final year, your senior year. So just to kind of hop into it, I wanted to first play 2 games with you. So first one is number associations. Okay. And you can, if you get it wrong, there's not a penalty or anything. So
good. All right.
So these numbers, the first number is 1, the second number is 7, third number is 25, and the fourth number is 24. What are those numbers?
Those are our wins from my 4 years playing with the program.
That is absolutely correct. If I had something, I'd give it to you. I have nothing. So yes, those are the win totals in each of the 4 seasons you played at Lancaster Bible College. Just for the viewers and listeners at home, again, that would be 1, that would be 7, that would be 25 and 24. So maybe you want to pick 2 more numbers and go play the lottery. I don't care. But we're going to get to all 4 of those numbers and your reaction. So the second game here is we're going to keep going on this. I want you to give me a word or a phrase and describe each of your 4 years at LBC in the men's volleyball program. So 2015, the team was 1 and 26.
Yep.
What is the word or phrase you'd like to use for that season? Or noise?
Humbling.
Humbling. Very good. Excellent. Mine was
Yep. That would have been.
And also Bob and I coined the phrase 55 minutes that year because that's how long all of our matches were.
Yeah.
So we knew how to plan our nights whenever there was a home volleyball match. It was great. Okay. Sophomore year. Sophomore year is a little bit better. 7 wins. I think 7 and 23, something of that nature. A little bit better. So 7 wins your sophomore year.
Yeah, I think the word I'd give to that year would be, am I allowed to use hyphens in this game?
Absolutely.
Okay. I would say hope giving. Maybe there's a better way to say that. One word that I can use to say that. Hopeful doesn't seem right, but yeah.
Good. No, it's great. I like that.
Okay.
Hyphens.
Good.
Nice.
Good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Junior
I was a
year.
communication major. So.
That's true. Good job. Hey, as someone who writes a lot, I like all that stuff. So hyphens and commas, you can kind of get away with whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Third, 25 and 9, NEAC semifinalist. A lot of good wins, but maybe we're going to get to it a little bit. Maybe not over the hump yet.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say the word I'd use is almost. Excellent. Just in a lot of different ways. Almost there.
Okay. And then the last one, 24 wins, senior year, NEAC champions, win an NCAA tournament match. What's the word or phrase there?
Thankful.
Awesome. Yeah. So with all of that in mind, let's try to go through some of these highs and lows, and not in that order.
No.
So before we bring it into each season, let's take a 40,000 foot view really fast. Over your 4 years, like we obviously just talked about, the team got better both on and off the floor. What are some of the reasons for that?
Well, I think first and foremost, and this can't be overstated, Coach Brubaker knows how to build a program. So he did it at Cairn, formerly PBU, and he's done it with LBC. He has his formula. He knows what it takes to build the skills in his players. He knows what types of players he needs on the court, and he knows how to cultivate and encourage the right kind of community among the team to be able to provide results that you would think are just athletic or skills based or talent based, but really, I think what set the team my senior year apart from other teams in the history of LBC or other teams that we played was how our team chemistry really bled onto the court when it came to winning big games and our ability to win. So I think, credit where credit's due. Coach Brubaker deserves a whole lot of praise for how he leads the team, leads the program, and then small things like recruiting. So that would be like, if I was to give one answer to that question, that's what that would be.
Excellent. That's a great transition to my next question, even though you haven't really seen the questions. This is fantastic. So obviously Jade was a good coach when he got to LBC. He's been a coach, good coach since he's been at LBC. Everyone knows that now. But to the casual observer, I'm not sure that's the conclusion you'd come to by looking at the first 2 years win totals for the program when you arrived. He had coached the year before you got there too. But what was he teaching those first 2 years that kind of bled into the third year and then really culminated with the fourth year? You brought up recruiting. I understand that they were better players the last 2 years, but there had to have been a couple, because there are still lots of guys, especially from that second year, that played pivotal roles, you and Casey specifically, on that team your senior year.
Yeah. Sorry, I laughed because I cut the question short in my mind. You started by saying, what was he teaching? And then you continued. I was going to say he was teaching how to pass and like how to hold your hands. And, he had 8 players and maybe 2 had ever played a game of volleyball in their life my first year. No, I mean, Jade knows the game really, really well. And he's one of those coaches who, it's not just that he's played the game, he's coached the game for years, but I mean, the dude's gone to seminars by Olympic coaches. He has relationships with coaches that he would say are better than him. He's very humble in the way that he approaches the game as a coach. Always ready to learn, always wanting to implement new things. So even in our first year, where we only had 8 players, maybe 9 for the bulk of the season, and you put 6 of those on the court, so you have 2 or 3 subs, which means practicing is really hard, because you don't really get to play against anyone. And coach was hopping into scrimmages, every single night of the week, trying to give us some competition to play against, some numbers on the other side of the court. But even in that first year, when practicing was difficult, and talent was lacking, he was already beginning to teach his system, and the way that, like, his coaching didn't change from the first year to the last year. What he had to work with, both numbers and talent wise, that did change. But he was instilling things in Sky and me, who were the only 2 players to experience that 4-year journey. And then Casey, when he came the next year, he was instilling in us basically a winning mentality, a winning game plan going into that final year when we had the talent to pull it off. But he's very competition oriented. So everything in practice is reward and punishment based. And you're constantly competing against your own guys for starting spot. I mean, he has a whiteboard. He has a very in-depth whiteboard that he rolls out onto the court. for practice, and you can see right there, where do you stack up against the other guys in your position. Now, again, first year, there was one guy in each position pretty much. So that was pretty easy. But basically don't take anything for granted. There are no gimmies on Jay Brubaker's team. You earn a spot by working hard and by continuing to work hard. The person who works hard the first 2 weeks of practice, shows himself as the best player, has to continue to do that every single week throughout the season. And not that he's going to take something away from someone who's earned it, or that you're living in fear of losing your spot, but it's a good source of accountability to see, all right, these guys are putting in work. I have to continue to do that too. And so I think it was neat to be able to experience the same coach all 4 years, even though he could have really dumbed down his system for us the first year. It was hard. It was really hard to get. And my only volleyball personally experience before my first year with the LBC team was co-ed high school volleyball, girls set, guys hit, which is a very different game than men's 6-on-6. And so there was a huge learning curve for me, but he expected us to put in the work mentally to learn the game, to learn his system, rather than just like, hey, let's just try to keep getting the ball over the net. Derek, so that's something I appreciated.
Derek, for listeners that don't even really know who Jade Brubaker is, they only see him as a coach. He's a very quiet man. Mm-hmm. And you've just described somebody to me that I probably have not seen this side of Coach Brubaker either. But how does he take all that? Like, he is so low key. How does he get you guys fired up and ready to go each and every week like he does?
Yeah, that's a great question. One way that he does that is by really leaning on his leaders, the player leaders on the team. Something Coach says all the time is, this is a player-led team. And so when it comes to tough decisions, when it comes to team accountability, he wants that to be coming from the team leaders specifically. And so he does a good job of instilling his mentality, his desires as a coach into the team captains, into the team motivators. And then we carried that out as far as motive. I'm known as probably one of the most vocal players in team history. If you ask, anyone who, for the past few years, who's the loudest, who talks the most, you're probably going to get, a Cam Conkle, Derek Bigley, some of those kind of guys. But I'm a hype man. I like to get people hyped up. And so, Jade is kind of silent but deadly in the way that he operates, the way that he communicates. But if he can get you on board with his system, then he uses the people he has on his team well to do the things that maybe aren't necessarily his strong suits, being as vocal or being the hype guy. Although he can really can motivate you, and he gets into it. And honestly, this is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but as I've been going through some of the footage from last year when I was filming the team, and I had him mic'd up for some of the games, that's stuff that I've, being on the court, I would never hear things that are going on, with a lapel mic on Jade during the game, and it's really fun. But he gets very into it. He even though he's not as loud of a personality, it's very obvious that he cares. He cares a lot. And so when you as a player know that your coach cares that much about you individually, about the team's success, and you can get on board with that, he's going to utilize you to execute his strategy. So I would say that's how I would answer that.
Yeah. I think everything you've just said is right on. And we've gotten glimpses of that Jade occasionally. Every once in a while, you'd hear something coming from the gym during a practice or a timeout when he didn't like something. I remember maybe your first year when the team was, it bothered him. But at the same time, what are you supposed to do? Like, these are the 9 guys that are on the team, like you said. it's not like we can go start grabbing people from the stands and telling them to go. I mean, but he would get frustrated. And how couldn't you? I mean, we joked about the 55 minutes thing, but like it's hard to drive to these matches or get ready for these matches when you know this is not going to take very long. And I think that that's been rewarding for me to see not only the hard work, obviously, the student athletes, but the work that he puts in, the recruiting that he does, the conversations he has. I mean, I think that when you talk to them we've had coaches where, you talk to them about the sport and they get excited when they talk to you about their sport, and they're really good recruiters that way. We've had other people who, maybe a little bit of a miss on the sport, but man, are they relational and, hey, this would be great. But he has such a great combination of the two. It's both relational. I mean, the cliche of turning you into from a boy into a man, your 4 years of college here. And oh, by the way, where you're going to be really good at volleyball, you're going to play some big matches. And it's hard to tell someone like you that your first year, like, hey, we're going to play in big matches. Wait till we go to the NCAA tournament. You're like, what's the NCAA tournament? Like, So he did want me to tell you though, Derek, he wants to thank you for getting cut from the tennis team in order for you to make the volleyball team. So he couldn't have cuts that first year, but apparently you told him I don't play volleyball. And so anyway, he wanted me to pass that along and thank you. So that's good.
Yeah. Blasphemy. But yeah, no problem.
So we talked to this for a little bit earlier, but your junior year, 25 wins, huge improvements over the first two. If I just told you your freshman year, hey, in 2 years, you're going to be 25 matches. You're like, where do I sign? I'm ready. At the same time, a couple of those wins are over, let's just say, bad teams. I would say that the NEAC is rather top heavy that year. You guys, Altoona, Poly occasionally, Wells occasionally, but it's pretty top heavy at that point. So we win 25 matches and that's great, but we lose in the NEAC semifinals to Wells, and probably, I'm not sure we won a ton of matches against teams that were better than us that year. Which tell me if that's not fair. I will gladly change my opinion, but what did you guys use during that season that clearly you guys are on the come up, you're ready to take that next step, but had not done that yet? What are some things you took from 17 and applied maybe in off-season training, that fall ball time, to get ready for 2018?
Yeah, well, I mean, we added Nate Miller. That was helpful. But so I'm not gonna, I won't just glance over that. That is huge. But I think just coming off of that sort of season where we got more than a glimpse of what we were capable of, those of us who were already there and then who were coming back for the big season in 18. We got a glimpse of what we were capable of, and we started we were starting to be able to cultivate an aspect of belief in the fact, because even in that season, I was getting used to winning volleyball games. That was kind of new to me, because we won 7 games my second year, which that's a lot more than one, but is still far under 500 average. So it was kind of like a surprise to me, still coming from where I'd come from, to be winning games. And I remember that aspect of the team culture and trying to change gears from the mental battle of we're a losing program to no, we're a winning program. And that was sort of the first year we had a big group of recruits. We had a couple my second year, but that year we had all these new guys coming in, and sort of the feeling amongst the team was sort of like, hey, we're a losing program. But those guys were coming from high school and maybe they'd had some success there. And so I remember that being a challenging year as a leader, because I was trying to figure out how to motivate those guys and try to help us get into that winning mentality when that was totally new for me, coming off of 2 years of just not a whole lot of success. So I think that was a really vital and important year going where we wanted to go, because we were able to sort of change the story, change the narrative of, all right, we can win some games. We won a lot of games. And then to be able to come to a semifinal and have just a gritty battle with Wells when we were undermanned, playing a formation we'd never played before because people were injured, and to lose and win by 2 on the 5th set. I think that was honestly huge for us. We knew what it felt like to lose that sort of match, and we never want to do that again. And not to say that we wouldn't ever, but you can bet your bottom dollar that when it came to playing, when it came to the NEAC playoff that next year, we didn't want to taste that same sort of defeat, at least in our conference. And that year before had given us a chance to be like, no, okay, we're going to be a winning program. We can win games. We're getting the talented players. Our system's working. We're changing the narrative. We fell short, and we don't want to do that again. So when we come back this year, we're going to work harder. We're going to be better, and we're going to win those games. And so I think that year was pivotal for us to change the narrative to becoming, no, we're going to be a winning program. And then the addition of Nate Miller to our roster was huge to just sort of like jumpstart that, kickstart that, make that happen sooner in that next year. And we were able to accomplish things like right away.
We had earlier in this series, we had Albert Suniga on to talk about the basketball teams in the middle part of the decade. And they had this exact same problem of not being able to get over the hump. We're winning 20 plus games, but we keep losing the wrong game. And now you guys overcame it quicker than they did. It took them 3 tries. It only took you guys 2, but you're describing exactly what happened to them. And kind of in the same way, I'm not going to put Nate Miller and, Bryce Williams and Zach Bilzen on the same, it's different. But that next season, then we lose the opener to New Paltz in our building, and then we never lose again in our building that year. We go on and win 6 straight matches. You mentioned the addition of Nate. Again, I'm not going to try to undersell that. He's the best volleyball player we've ever had. At the same time, though, at this point, Ansel's in his 2nd year. Cole's been there a while. You've been there a while. Casey's been there a while. There's other additions that year for sure, heading into 2018, but no addition is larger than he. But he's also coming into a scenario where the other 5 guys on the floor with him have all played together, to the best of my knowledge. What were those first couple of weeks like? Those first couple of weeks of practice? Was everyone kind of like, this is really easy, or was it like, hey man, like, can you hold on and say, like, we've all played together. You just need to like make sure that you fit in with us? Or what were those first couple of weeks like of the season? Because obviously the talent is there, but you can't just win on talent alone.
Right. Yeah, I think the cool thing is, I would say the main aspect of the story of men's volleyball, across all years, has always been, all years that I've been involved and since, to the best of my knowledge, has been the team chemistry, and the team culture, and what is that atmosphere. And so for us, like, winning volleyball games, that's super fun. We want to do that. We'll do whatever it takes to do that, within reason, obviously. But for us, the most important thing entering that season was, let's integrate the new guys. Let's get them into our team culture. Let's maintain this fantastic atmosphere that we've created, and show them what it means to be an LBC men's volleyball player. And so I personally I came from a situation where I walked onto the team, actually my sophomore year. I did 5 years of college, which is why I got to play the final, last year for me. But my 2nd year of college was my first year with the team, and I walked on because they needed bodies, and I was able to play starting hitter role. And then I started the next year, and then we get Nate Miller, we get some other guys, and now we actually have some volleyball players. And so I was told in preseason Derek, you're currently our fourth hitter. And we all had a one-on-one with the coaches. By the way, having Coach Kemmer that year was awesome, and that was a huge addition to our coaching staff. And he really played a great role for us that year. But so I sat in a room with Jade and Julie and Coach Kemmer, and they asked me, where do you see yourself in the lineup right now? And I said, well, I'm probably the fourth hitter. And at this point we had a huge roster. So that put me somewhere in the middle of the outside hitters, but obviously one spot short of a starting role. And so they agreed with me, and they said, yep, that's where we see you, kind of right behind Cole, because we all knew Nate and Casey were starting role hitters. And I was a team captain that year. And so it's kind of weird to go from starting your first 3 years and then riding the bench your fourth year. It's kind of the reverse of the general narrative there. But for me, like, I wanted to see the team win, and obviously I wanted to play. And I have my own kind of personal storyline that went on during that year. But I say that to say, like, we just wanted the program to do well. And that was secondary to us to having a great experience with awesome guys. And the coolest thing about the program and my first year experience, yeah, we won one game. And there was a bit of a toxic situation on the team that got resolved about halfway through the season, a third of the way through the season. But that back half of the season was the best sports experience I've ever had in my life. And I said that right after that year. And I hold to that. It got better after that. But at that point, the experience of traveling around for free with a bunch of awesome guys, playing a sport, not very well, but playing a sport and just having fun with some really quality guys, that was the best team experience I'd ever had. We took that year, built an atmosphere, a team culture, and maintained that. And that was always the most important thing for us, is building an atmosphere that guys can thrive. There's biblical, spiritual accountability. There's support in our faith, in our life. And we just had so much fun, like, all the time together. So that was always the biggest thing going into that last year, and bringing in those guys, bringing in Kurt, bringing in Nate, and others. We just wanted to integrate them into our atmosphere. So that was the main focus. And it wasn't really a challenge for me to say, like, yeah, if bringing in Nate Miller means, I get bumped off the starting roster, that's okay with me, because we're going to be a baller volleyball team. And I got to be a service specialist, which was great because I got to play, and it would have been harder if I didn't get to play at all. But that wasn't really a hard call for me, because what we were most focused on is making sure that they fit into our team atmosphere, that they kind of got what that was going to look like. And they bought into it. They loved it. I mean, it'd be hard not to when everyone else has bought into it and loves it. But both those guys and the rest of the newcomers fit in great. And obviously it worked out well on the court. But that was always, other than figuring out how things worked on the court, that was always our biggest deal, was fit into the team culture. This is how we do things, and you're going to love it. I promise you.
That's awesome. That's just great. I should mention to anyone who doesn't know, your first year when you went 1-26, at one point you were 1-3. So that means the final 23, I'll let you do the math, didn't go very well. So the fact that you're singing the praises of that experience, though, is a great way to talk about the foundational things that were going on that season with you and Sky. And then the next year when Casey gets brought on, like, there's some things you have to go through to really have that kind of mentality. So when you bring in all these guys the next year, it's a lot more fun driving home from Utica after you've swept SUNY Poly than getting swept by SUNY Poly. So
yep.
I think that's a big thing that maybe people who haven't had that experience go through, that, these are long, at the time, van rides, bus rides, perhaps towards the end there, and they get really long when it's not good. Again, we're not, the end all is not winning every single match, but those long trips home, you'd rather do it after a win, especially some of the times that you guys are driving home at 1-2 in the morning some weekends.
Yeah,
those are more fun after wins, at least. So So there's a couple losses to some ranked teams. All of the losses your final year are to ranked teams, actually. But at the beginning of March, we have one more loss, and then we win 14 straight. The sets are 42-4. We only dropped 4 sets the rest of the regular season through the NEAC final. What was that run like, especially for someone like you? We obviously have the backstory here of all of your years, but the basketball season's over. It was a successful basketball year, so you guys are kind of hiding for a little while. As the team, obviously the team's doing well. People are figuring this out, but the men's basketball team this year, we're going to talk about it in a little while on the podcast, goes to the NCAA tournament as well. They win the NEAC as well, and they play to the beginning of March. So I'm not going to say you guys are second fiddle, but probably not the first breath is, hey, did you hear about the men's volleyball team? It's pretty men's basketball heavy at LBC when they're doing well. Everyone kind of understands this. But as their season is ending, you guys are starting this winning streak where you're not just beating teams. It's kind of like laughable, some of these matches. And, you know, Nate's hitting it through the floor and Caleb's setting it everywhere. And, you know, Kurt digs out everything and Casey's still pounding it through. And, you know, Cole can jump from behind the service line to the net sometimes. And like all these things are happening. And the ride is sort of getting fun, and students are coming to all the matches now, and it's kind of just as loud at volleyball as it usually is as basketball. And, you know, all of these things are kind of culminating together, and you guys are, like you just said, enjoying this ride on and off the floor. What was it like those last couple of weeks of the regular season and into the NEAC final, which we hosted that year?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. That was really fun. It was fun to have the campus buzzing about volleyball a little bit, about men's volleyball. Yeah, I mean, we felt unbeatable pretty much at that point. We you know, like you said, our only losses came to ranked teams, and we felt like we could win those games. And I you know, and those were teams that my first year I was scared during warm up, like, and we would get 1, 2, 3 points on them the entire game, and that was because they were serving too aggressively and served it into the net because it was too easy for them. And we're playing those same teams now, and we're like, yeah, we can beat these guys. And so, you know, when you hit that stretch and we look at that, you know, we look at the teams we're playing, like, yeah, this is us. We're winning all these games. And to have people excited to come to volleyball, not only coming to volleyball games, because there were more people coming that year, and that was fun, but excited to come. Some kind of like some faithfulness there from our fans who, you know, multiple people would come again, and then we'd see the same people again, and we're seeing not just our friends up there, but other people, and they're excited about volleyball and they're getting into it. And that's fun as someone who, you know, would go to the basketball games and support them and you know, go crazy with the crowd there, to have, you know, the crowd freaking out when Nate Miller would bounce a ball on the 10-foot line and to the rafters, and they're like, the fans are falling all over each other because it was incredible, which, for the record, you know, we're all falling over each other on the bench too. That's fun. That's really fun. I remember explaining that season in some of those home games to someone as saying, like, those moments where Nate pounds it, or Cole pounds it, or Casey pounds it like that. I've never experienced that in volleyball, where it feels like you're witnessing a slam dunk in basketball. You're watching CJ Dunston just slam the ball into the net. You know, that was what Nate Miller was for us, him specifically. But I mean, the other guys could pound it too. But I'd never seen anything like that, and it was fun for me to kind of get to spectate that a little bit from the bench. But yeah, it was super fun to have the team, to have the school behind us, cheering us on. They were excited about what we were doing. And that win streak was pretty awesome.
You mentioned practices earlier about that first year where, you know, Jade's trying to do some of the drills because it's just trying to make it competitive or a little more even, things like that. That year specifically, and then we, you know, the years after too, there was a ton of people, I don't want to say riding the bench, but who never saw the floor, who started the next year for this team and the year after. I mean, Kyron Flahive didn't play in 2018, and he was just as good. He's fantastic. Benjamin Herb did not play. I mean, these are our best players a year or two later. What were practices like during the 2018 season?
Oh, they were so fun. They were so fun. Yeah. So I mentioned that sort of highly competitive nature that Jade brings to his practice regimen. And it was fun to see, okay, so this is what that's supposed to look like. As we actually have enough players, we have a sort of a third, we have our team split up into thirds, and we're rotating people on and off the court because we have too many people. And like that's super fun. But then, yeah, I mean, I would say the team that came after the 2017-2018 season was more talented in the sport of volleyball than the team my senior year. And so some of those guys who didn't see much of the court my senior year were starting that year and just absolutely killing it. So yeah, we knew what they could do because we played them in practice. The starters played them in practice. Well, I shouldn't say we. I was not a starter. I played with them during practice. And that was super fun because all of those guys wanted to beat the starting squad so bad. And we did, like, multiple times. It didn't change who the starters were because they were the points leaders in practice. And because that's how coach does it. And it obviously works, and they would win more than we would, but it wasn't like they steamrolled, second or even third string in practice. So it was super fun to be able to just compete at a very high level in our practices. And guys were passionate. There was yelling across the net back and forth during practice because guys wanted to win those scrimmages, those drills. Coach has some crazy drills that he made us do. But it all stirs up this competitive desire and this desire to see your name do well on his whiteboard. So yeah, it was fiery. Practices were intense. And there was a lot of skill on that team.
That's great. And so just to finish off the year here a little bit in terms of the schedule, we win the NEAC final, defeat Wells at home. Just a great day. I mean, it's one of those things. We talked about the 15-16 basketball team, and there was no way that game against Morrisville State that they were going to lose. I think of it as the same way in those two matches against Penn State Altoona and Wells, and there was just no way we were going to lose. And it doesn't make it any less sweet. In fact, beating Altoona and Wells, our two biggest rivals at the time in the NEAC, probably made it even more sweeter. So I don't want to poo-poo the fact that we won the NEAC, but we go to the NCAA tournament, and no one has ever won an NCAA tournament game. So I couldn't find Riviere on a map if you gave me two hints at the time. So I'm sure some parents went. I didn't go. I think we had a home event that weekend, so I don't think I went to the match. And all of a sudden, you're kind of watching, and you're watching the stats, and hey, we're winning, and hey, this is going to go to a fifth set, and we win. And what was it like to, again, and I don't know what your expectations were prior to that match. I don't know how Jade prepared you, or how you guys were thinking, or, let's keep this going. You had obviously played ranked opponents during the regular season. What was the mentality going into that match with Riviere?
Yeah. That was a fun weekend. We're up at Springfield, and they have a great facility and sort of this more arena feeling volleyball court. Basically when we were looking at Riviere, sort of our mentality was they're no different than us. There's nothing special about them other than that they're a good volleyball team. But all I kind of remember from that weekend was just thinking about Springfield. In my mind, we were, all right, we got to win this game, and then we'll get to Springfield. Not to belittle who Riviere was, but I think we knew our ability. We obviously knew we were going to have to play very hard, and it was a 5-set match. It wasn't, we didn't blow them out. They could have easily won that match, just as easily as we ended up winning it. But in our minds, we kind of had decided we were going to win a first round game. And we knew we were probably not going to win a second round game. So we really wanted to win the first round game, considering we were playing the best team in the nation afterwards. But yeah, it was interesting because Casey had sprained his ankle celebrating immediately after winning the NEAC championship against Wells. And so he wasn't really 100% going into the NCAA weekend. So I was fully prepared to have to walk on the field and take his spot. But thankfully I didn't have to do that, and he was okay enough to play because he's a big difference maker for us on the court, even if he's not getting the number of sets he normally would. But yeah, it was interesting because we weren't, who's going to be on the court. We don't know. Is Casey up for it? Ended up playing Casey. He did well. He did what he was supposed to do. And it was, I don't really remember much about that match, to be honest. Obviously it was stressful. It was a 5-setter. That's always going to be stressful, but I don't remember there ever being a lack of faith that we could win that game. I don't even remember who won what set, but I think when it went to a 5th set, we knew we were going to win. And that's just sort of the team that we were that year.
Yes. We actually we won the first set and then trailed 2-1. But like you said, hotly contested match the whole way, 27-25, 22-25, 21-25, 25-23, and then 15-12. So again, no one's blown anybody out, and it was a good match. And we're going to get to when we recap the season, Greg, but that Nate has 41 kills, which is an NCAA tournament record still. But at the same time, like you said, though, and again, I'm not sure how, pretty faithful group of guys, but playing Springfield in the Elite Eight kind of probably had an understanding of where the season was headed going into that match. But it's still a good way to showcase the program when you can play the number 1 team in the country. And, they're still a great program, and, they're right up there every single year. But at the same time, I think LBC's on the map now for men's volleyball as well. And just sort of my last question here before Bob gets to his last question, just so the program is still doing so well. You're sort of involved a little bit, like you said, doing some video, doing some things that way, or communication wise for the program. Casey is now an assistant coach. A couple of the guys that were on the 18 team are still within the program playing, still students and things like that. We kind of talked before the podcast. You sort of mentioned it as well. I would probably argue that the 2019 team was better on the floor. I would argue that last year's team was better. They were gonna. That's my one disappointment with all this COVID thing and things like that, is that the men's volleyball team 2020 was probably one of the best teams on the floor, on the field of play that we've ever had. I'd put them right up there with the 15-16 basketball team for sure. It's a couple part question here for you. What made that 18 team special? We've mentioned it through the whole podcast. I'm not sure if you just want to kind of bring it home there. And then why is this program still so successful, and what is the ceiling for this program?
Yeah. So I think what made the 18 teams so special was our history, and knowing where we had come from. And there's a lot of competitive maturity that comes with going through seasons like we went through my first 2 years, falling short the year, before this 18 season. And then, when we're finally there and we have the ability to win games, when it comes down to the wire and those close games, 4th set, 5th set, there's a lot of competitive maturity on that team. Even if young guys are getting a little skittish going into those final sets, we've got three big voices on that team saying, calm down, we got this. You've got Casey and Sky who were on the floor. I was occasionally on the floor, but I honestly loved getting to be on the bench and getting to interact with the bench guys a lot of time that year. But there's a core that's been in those scenarios and lost, and and at this point knows what to do to win. And so I think what was special about that 18 team was the balance of young talent and experienced wisdom going into those really tough games. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the 19 team, because I would without a doubt say they were a better volleyball team than we were. But I think in a sense, when it came down to testing their merit in the really tough fifth set match sort of scenario, with everything on the line, they almost in a sense had to taste what we did in the 17th season, to then go into the 2020 season and do what they did. And that, I mean, to be honest, like that was a heartbreaking scenario for me that they didn't get to finish out this year. I think that this year's team would have beat the Springfield team that knocked us out of the NCAA tournament. Like that, that's what I think. I think they could have won it all that year. And so they just kind of, I think the 19 team needed to kind of gain some of that maturity and competitive experience themselves in losing that match. And then they were going to be far better in 2020 because they had that plus their talent going into 2020. They're going to be head and shoulders above where we were in 18, and still will be moving forward, because now they have an even better hybrid of that winning formula. So, and I think you said, what's the ceiling for this program? I think that LBC is going to win. I think LBC is going to win the national championship sometime during Jade's tenure. Unfortunately, I think it probably very well could have happened this year. But I don't think that this was the year and, oh man, we missed it and it's never going to happen again. Because like I said, Jade's been there before. He knows what it takes to build a program. If it takes him time to do it again, he'll do it again. But I think there's enough of those players coming back this year and enough of those guys who were along for that ride last year that it could happen sooner than we think. But I 100% think the ceiling for this program is that there isn't one. Not to be cliche, but there isn't a ceiling in the sense that they could win multiple. They could win multiple NCAA championships because Jade knows how to do it, and because there's faith in the program, faith in ourselves, faith in themselves, and their ability to do great things. I think last year was sort of the final step in that process. We had to gain success in the 18th season, show that we can win big games. And then, I think the things that they accomplished in the individual matches that they played this year, I think that was sort of the final step in proving we are an elite program. We have the capability to be there every year and to win it all, because I don't think there was really anything standing in the team's way this year.
Derek, you talked a lot about just team chemistry and building, wanting to be together. I know one of the things that Jade has done is you guys have gone on some Push the Rock trips. You went as a player. I believe that was over to Spain, your second year on the team. And then this past year, the team went to Brazil, and you were actually able to go along and be a part of that trip as well.
Yeah.
Talk about those experiences for a moment.
Yeah. So the trip I went on as a player actually was my third year. And so that was the year that we started to be a better team on the court. And I think just kind of objectively, and Jade's always trying to do this. It's a lot easier when you can take an international trip, but anytime you can take the focus off of yourself and do things for other people, I think that enables you to be more thankful for the opportunities you have. It really dives deeper into who do we want to be as individuals? Who do we want to be as a program? We want to be a program that invests in people. We want to be a program that invests in programs. We want to be people that are willing to give of our time and energy to serve other people. whether in the sport that we play, or in other ways, in more servant classified ways. And so I think that that's a big thing that going on a mission trip does for a team is, especially when you can take an international trip and take away all the comfortability and the habits and the routine of being at home, enter an entirely different culture, adapt. There's so many things that are good about that. And I think both years that I got to go with the team, I saw a different level of bondedness happening on those trips, running clinics together, playing international teams, being together 24/7, all that stuff. So I was really thankful for that experience when I was on the team, and I honestly think it was a huge difference maker for the team this year, and a big part of. There were some really cool conversations that happened on that trip, and some big sort of moments in team chemistry building, team culture building, that I'll keep private. But they took a stand. There was a moment where they took a stand this year on the trip and said, no, this is the type of team we want to be. That's being kind of questioned, and we're saying, no, this is who we're going to be. We're going to hold ourselves accountable to this. And then to see that being carried into the season, as a kind of an associated third party for me, was really cool. But I think those were just opportunities for us to kind of get out of the normal routine, grow together as a team, and practice giving to other people.
You talk about just like that's incredible to hear, like some of the culture that happens. And I've been on trips like that where when you're with people 24/7, you really do get to know them. And you have those unique life experiences that nobody will ever have with you. And it's pretty cool. Jade's also pretty good at making sure that practices are not put to waste either. And if I understand it right, there's always a Valentine's practice that comes up.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens at Valentine's practices, Derek?
Oh my word. I don't even know how that started. So basically it's not really a practice anymore at that point. But every guy is supposed to bring a girl to the Valentine's practice. Obviously, if you're in a relationship, you're supposed to bring your significant other. But then, we see a lot of, women's volleyball players show up for the guys that don't have a girlfriend. Or last year, somehow there was a connection to Messiah, and 3 Messiah field hockey players showed up. I don't really know how the guys are coordinating this, but yeah, every guy brings a girl, and then there's all these sort of stereotypical couples games played. We played the newlywed game where they're, answering questions with the shoes, and we take pictures, and everyone dresses. It's almost like a Halloween Valentine hybrid practice, because you're supposed to come in a costume. It's interesting. It's a good time, but it's interesting. And then we'll play some of the sort of mini game sort of things that we'll play in a more fun practice scenario. We'll play those partner games with the guys and the girls will play those and compete against each other. It gets very competitive for sure. Not a whole lot of volleyball happens, but it's just sort of one of those fun moments where we're just gonna have some fun as a team and goof off and be silly tonight. So yeah.
So, hey, before you go, I have 2 more thoughts for you. One is, not only were you highly involved with men's volleyball at Lancaster Bible College, but you served in resident life. You were extremely involved with worship arts and music. How do you manage all that as a student athlete, as a student, as a music, a person that loves it so much? What was all that like over your 4 years, trying to balance all the many interests that you have?
Yeah, well, I'd love to see sort of a conglomeration of other people's answers to that when thinking about me, because if you ask Jade that question about, sort of what did my experience look like and what was his opinion on my experience, he might give you a very different. there was some conflict over the fact that I did a musical, and it took me away from volleyball practices, and that's a whole nother story. But to answer your question, yeah, there were just a lot of things that I was passionate about that I got to be involved in at college, and at a smaller college like LBC. There's still all the same sorts of opportunities that you would have at a bigger college, but there's fewer people to fill those spots. So I kind of got to be involved in sort of whatever I wanted to be for the most part, because there weren't as many people vying for those spots. And for me, people has always been the biggest thing. And if you look kind of across the board at sort of the three main areas I was involved in, which would be sports, music performance areas, and res life, very people heavy, all three of those. And so I loved my peers. As a guy, as an RA, I loved pouring into my brothers and into the younger guys, the younger classmen, and then on the team, just those are all things that I love. But for me, it was as I look back on it, it was really all about the people. There were times where I almost quit volleyball a couple times, because I was like, this is stupid. I'm not a volleyball player. I shouldn't be spending this much time doing something that I'm never going to do after college. I'm not even that good at in the first place, and it's taking up the majority of my time at school. But I couldn't sacrifice the experience that I was having with the guys, and I wasn't going to find that somewhere else. So each of those areas kind of gave me a different experience with people, a different way to interact with people. And for me, obviously academics is the most important when you're spending money to go to college. And I did invest in those, but I think, something's always got to give. And for me, it was kind of the perfect balance of a little bit of academic excellence, but mostly sleep. So there wasn't a whole lot of sleeping going on during my college years. It was involvement in lots of things, cram in homework when you could, and sleep if possible. But I had a great time at LBC. I wouldn't trade that experience for anything in the world, and I could answer a much longer answer as to why everyone should go to LBC. So
we always ask our guests kind of a little bit of what's going on in life right now. Like I know it hasn't been super long since you graduated from LBC, but in the 2 years since, what's happening and what are you up to at this point in your life?
Yeah. So I've been blessed with the opportunity to work in my field. I graduated from communications department at LBC in May of 2018. And since then, I've been a digital media specialist at Calvary Church right down the road, really heavily working in video production, which is my passion in the communication sphere. So I've been growing my skill sets there. It's been a great first job out of college for me, and I've been loving that. But most importantly, basically right after graduation, I got married to the love of my life, and so I'm a married man, and loving that. And Ruth Ann and I are basically at the 2.5-year mark of marriage at this point. So that's super fun, and then I've continued to play ultimate frisbee, which is actually my primary sport. It's I'm much better at ultimate than I am at volleyball, but played that in the club spheres, USA Ultimate sanctioned stuff, as well as year-round at Spooky Nook, because that's fun. And then during quarantine, actually picked up disc golf competitively, and I'm now been competing in sanctioned tournaments, and I have a rating. And anyone who knows me well could tell you anything that piques my interest, I kind of go a little too hardcore into. But so that's continued to be the story of my life. And now I have way too many disc golf discs, and I play a lot. But yeah, I continue to play sports when I can. Obviously stayed connected with the men's volleyball team, was attempting to make a documentary this year. And I think I probably still will. But that was a great experience to get to spend a lot of time with the guys again, film them, and that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, very cool. Have you played the course on campus at all yet? The disc golf course?
I did a little bit before it was completed, and then and then right before they kind of finish it up, they ask for no visitors on campus, please,
Yeah.
for a little while, and which I think is now kind of becoming a little bit more casual. So I'll probably be there soon. But yeah, it's fun. I know the guys who designed it, and the guy from the community who was kind of brought in is sort of known as the main pro in the area, and he's designed some great courses. So I wasn't surprised to find some technical shots on the LBC course, and but obviously there's not a ton of space to work
Right.
with.
Yeah.
But yeah, for what's there, great course of design, fun finishing hole with the boulder hole on 18. So yeah, it's great. You should check out the LBC disc golf course, guys.
Nice plug. That's beautiful. That's great.
Thank you.
You
I get nothing out of that.
That's neither do we. That's okay. So excellent. Well, hey, Derek, we really appreciate you coming on and talking about not only the men's volleyball program, but just LBC in general. And like a lot of our guests, it's amazing to hear how much LBC has stuck with them, and how many things were going on behind the scenes that Bob and I didn't know. And those have made for great interviews, and this one certainly gets added to that list very high. So we really appreciate it, and we can't wait to see you around when we start playing some volleyball some year. So
sure hope so. Yeah, thanks guys. This was fun.
Appreciate it, Derek. We'll see you soon. Thanks again.
Yeah, of course.
All right. We'll see you. So again, that was Derek Bigley from the men's volleyball team there from 2015 to 2018. And again, got to see the highs and lows of the men's volleyball program, and just a great person to talk to about all sorts of different things. So it was great. And Bob, if you don't mind, maybe we'll go to the rest of the podcast. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Excellent.
Sounds good.
Excellent. So anyway, 2017-18, like we said, pretty fantastic year for a lot of our teams and some individuals as well. Just kind of kick off here with the men's soccer team. The men's soccer team was 10-10-2, 6-3-1 in the NEAC. They defeated Penn State Berks in the NEAC quarterfinals and lost to SUNY Poly in the NEAC semifinals. They won 3 of their final 4 NEAC games to clinch a spot in the NEAC playoffs. Had a big win at Wilson on October 25th to clinch that NEAC playoff berth. They were down 3-2, and Caleb Nelson and Edward Bills scored in the final 11 minutes to clinch that win there. We'll talk about that game in a little while as well. Edward Bills, 9 goals, 8 assists. Caleb Nelson, 10 goals, 4 assists. Raman Mugisha had 8 goals. Dan Baversdorf, 4 goals, 3 assists. Thiago Nake was the goalie that year for the most part. He went 8-6 as well. Kind of a sneaky good team, despite the fact they went 10-10-2, but some pretty good players. And then we had a lot of players who were beginning their careers at LBC that would go on to have really good careers as well.
Yeah, the team is starting to show a little bit more growth and depth, and we're starting to see just opportunities for this team to really become something special for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a fun team, and that game at Wilson, I kind of remember watching that and kind of going crazy when they got those last 2 goals. So it was again a fun team, probably some of the better games for Edward Bills in his storied career there at LBC as well. So women's soccer was 7-9-3 overall, 6-3-1 in the NEAC. This was Allie Brown then, now Allie Long's first year. She was named the head coach about 10 days before the season started, I think. A late hire there for the women's soccer team. They did make the NEAC playoffs, though they lost 3-2 on penalty kicks to Bryn Athyn in the NEAC quarterfinals. Like the men, they won 3 of their final 4 NEAC games to clinch a spot. They started the year 0-5, finished the year 7-4-3. So it took a little while, but they did get going there towards the middle and end of the year. Reagan Horst led the team with 11 goals, 28 points, 3 game winning goals. Rachel Kummer had 7 goals, 6 assists. Kate Spezio and Kirsten Hatch had 5 goals apiece. Kendra Brown, she split time in goal that year, but she was 5-2-1 with a 1.05 goals against average and 3 shutouts. I don't remember a ton about this team, Bob, but I do remember the game against Bryn Athyn. Probably, unfortunately, I remember losses more than wins sometimes, but I remember it was a kind of an upset that we lost. I think we did everything we could. They kind of packed the box a little bit, and we just couldn't score. And then we lost in PKs. But a decent team that had some good midfielders. Probably lacked a little bit of scoring that year, but a team nonetheless that kind of came together midway through and kind of set the tone for the rest of the year then.
When you started saying some of the names of the players and stats, the thing that probably stands out with that team is the defense in the back line and how they just start really becoming. Hatch just becomes a real key player in the backfield there. And then you say Reagan's name, and one of my first thoughts goes to your son, and who is Reagan's biggest fan and
Absolutely.
was always cheering her on. So
absolutely.
Yep. You're absolutely right. Allie had to come in and just take what she had and go for it. And she absolutely tried to do and did the best that she could with just coming into the team. It was, we were excited for Leah to be able to go and have another opportunity and stuff, but it sure leaves your team just like, okay, what are we doing next year? Right. So, yep.
This is along the same lines as some of these other names we mentioned. The names we didn't mention on the defensive end, Michaela Ragsdale, Maddie Dion. These are the years where they play a lot of minutes and they end up becoming cornerstones of our defense for the next couple of years. So the big years for them as well.
Yep.
Women's volleyball. This is Jackie Smith's only year as the head coach. They went 12-20, 6-3 in the NEAC. They lost 3-1 to Gallaudet in the NEAC quarterfinals. Had a couple winning streaks there throughout the season. Just kind of struggled in different parts of the year, especially towards the end. They were 0-5 in 5-set matches. Hannah talked about it last week. This was the season after Alyssa had passed away, and I think there was a lot of good intentions for the season, and they really wanted to honor her and play together. Unfortunately, I think there were just a couple of matches, or maybe more than a couple, just a lot of matches where they just simply didn't have enough talent to compete with the other team on some nights. Hannah, though, did lead the team with 251 kills. Ashton Bauslag had 250 kills. Becca Roberts, 139 kills, 87 blocks. Miranda Kemmerer, her final year, 504 digs. Only 4 players have had over 500 digs women's volleyball program history. And then Allison Shuey that year, 660 assists, 73 blocks, and 84 kills. So there's pieces there on this team that are going to be very important the following year when they go to the NEAC final, where we're going to talk about next week. But again, I think kind of along the lines of what Derek was just talking about, I think there are some things that this team had to go through in 2017 before they could be really good the next year in 2018.
The other piece, not only was it the loss of Alyssa Bowen and having to deal with that, but then they also have a brand new coach. And I think any student athlete's going to tell you when you've had a coach for 2 and 3 years, you're used to their way of doing things. And a new coach comes in and usually they're not necessarily trying a whole lot different, but they also want to make it their program. And so I think these ladies had to deal with the adjustment of a new coach and very much a first-year coach on top of it too. Not only was Jackie new to Lancaster Bible College, but this was her first head coaching gig as well. So
yeah, she did a lot of good things off the floor. She was a big help to the program in terms of how they bonded together, how they did a lot of, just things off the floor that really helped the program and that they continue to do today. So again, she's only there a year, but I do know, and Hannah mentioned it last week as well, just kind of some of the things they did off the floor to kind of help them come together as a program and a team that, hopefully we don't overlook, despite the fact that she's only there 1 year.
Yep.
Women's cross country, they were 7th out of 11 teams in the NEAC championships. This was the year Sammy Stoner ran for the Chargers. She was 2nd at the NEAC championships. She had 2 wins during the year and 4 top 5 finishes, so a really good year for her. On the men's side, they were 4th out of 13 teams in the NEAC championships. Tanner Kroeb was the NEAC champion, our first ever men's cross country NEAC champion. He had 3 wins during the year and 4 top 10 finishes. The team won 2 races as well, the Penn State Abington Invitational and the LBC Homecoming Invitational. Stephen Marshall was 11th at the NEAC championships. Richard Haynes, 15th. This is Ryan Gaiman's first year as the coach. I think Tanner had a good first couple years at LBC, and this sort of came out of nowhere, though, in terms of him winning the NEAC championship. And I mean, there was a pretty good buzz during the fall that he was really, really good that whole season.
Yeah. Well, whereas new coaching can be a challenge, Ryan really came in and I think taught Tanner some just technical things about running. And that was the biggest thing that I kept hearing around the gym whenever you'd see him. Ryan was really good about form and opportunity, and just I don't know a whole lot about running, but apparently there's a lot more to it when you want to become a really good runner. And Ryan was he just eat, drinks, breathes running through and through, and he was able to communicate that well to these guys and some of the ladies too, for sure. And this is really the start of men's cross country becoming something special too.
Absolutely. Ryan was a fantastic runner at Eastern Mennonite when he was in college, and he had this uncanny knack for watching someone run. Like he would say, take a couple strides, and they would take a couple strides, and he'd come back like, okay, so your hips are lined up wrong here. Let me tell you about your foot placement when you come down on the ground. It's like, wait, he just jogged. How did you see? Like, what? It was like watching a surgeon do brain surgery. It was amazing. He just knew how to do all those technical things. And again, it was amazing that he would say, now that he's doing that, he's sliced off 20 seconds because his hips were wrong. Like, it was amazing to watch his mind work. But then to see the times, they would just go down, down, down. I mean, some of these guys who 15th, Richard Haynes was not a 15th place runner his first year at LBC.
No.
Like, let's just call it what it is. And 15th place, that he's on the all conference team.
Yeah.
And so it was just amazing what he was doing with our top echelon runners, the middle runners, even runners who just kind of came to the program. He would say, okay, if you're willing to buy into this, I can do this, and this with you. And it was amazing to watch him do it. Just amazing.
Yep. He really did. And that is why Tanner improved as much as he did. So
Yep. And that's why more and more people started coming to the program as well.
Yeah,
so
that's true as well.
And we'll get to that. So, so anyway, good fall there, kind of culminating with Tanner's NEAC championship. As we move to the winter, men's basketball, 23-6, 15-1 in the NEAC. They defeated Wilson in the NEAC semifinals, and then they beat Morrisville State in the NEAC final to advance the NCAA tournament for the second time. And they lost to Christopher Newport 68-65 in the NCAA tournament on a last-second three-pointer. We'll just do this now. So I rewatched the Morrisville State final and the Christopher Newport game. It was a slow week. The Morrisville State game, the final score, we won by 5. That game was back and forth the whole time. Like, I was nervous rewatching it. I knew what the final score was.
Yeah.
It was just a back and forth. The teams were very even. No one could really pull away. Herbie hit a couple of big shots. Luke hit 2 huge 3-pointers, Luke Beers, towards the end of the game there. And it was just a really, really great game. The Christopher Newport game, I know you were there. I was working because we actually worked out a way to broadcast the game on our feed from their gym. They gave us the camera and I did the broadcasting. It was great. And Pete Stover, surprise, was there doing all of the work next to me. That game was unbelievable. It was all, first of all, it's like the best place ever to play a basketball game. The crowd was into it because it was a home game for Christopher Newport. We were down 8 with 2 minutes to go, and we tied the game on this play. Zach kind of brought it up a couple of weeks ago, but they had this play in the playbook that they did not use all year long. Zach was keeping it. He was holding it for the perfect time. And they came out of this timeout down by 2. Christo rolls around and somebody, I think it was Livesey, finds him cutting to the basket, and he lays it and ties the game. I'm going nuts on the call. And there's 8 seconds to go, and Christopher Newport doesn't call timeout. They go down the floor. Is Tyler Femi has the ball. He passes it. Christo kind of follows the ball like a half step too far, and they throw it back to Femi. And he's open. When he starts the shot, he's open. Christo, who is, I don't know, has a 14-foot wingspan, I think, somehow gets close enough to make it a contested shot. And he just misses blocking it. And that ball went through the hoop with 0.1 second to go. And I think they put the couple seconds, 10th of a second back on, but we didn't have a chance to tie it. It was a great game.
Oh my goodness.
F&M had won the other game there. And Zach mentioned this, that we were going to play F&M.
Yeah. And F&M stayed for the game too.
Uh-huh.
And so they were actually pulling for us because they wanted to play us just as badly as we wanted to play them.
Right.
But having them in the stands and watching it, and the fan base that we had taken along down there.
Mm-hmm.
That game, Christopher Newport, I think, just really overlooked Lancaster Bible that night and had the scare of their life that night.
I think we had a really, really good team for all the attributes we gave the 15-16 team. The 17-18 team, like Zach said the other week on the podcast, was really good, and they played so well as a team. The team was deep. They could go. They had, this is Billy Livesey's one of his better years. This is Jalen Archer's only year. He was really good. Britton Beachy is a freshman. I mean, there's just a lot of guys who were really, really good. I mean, Herbie Brown, 16.4 points a game. Krista Majoke, 13 points. Quentin Davis, 11 points. Livesey, 7. Archer, 7. 8 players with 5 or more points a game. Mm-hmm. There's just this balance the whole team had throughout the year. Some big non-conference wins against Susquehanna and Muhlenberg. We won 15-16 games in January and February. It was just a really fun year in all the different ways from 15-16. 15-16 was this powerhouse, brute, we're going to outscore you. These games aren't even competitive. We won a lot of close games that year, but we won a lot of close games because we played so well as a team and could get scoring from different players.
Yeah. The 17-18 team, I think there's still conversations going on in the background of which team is better, the 17-18 or 15-16 teams. Boy, that's what a toss-up. And they won, like as you have said, in very different ways. This team coming into the Division III tournament, they had nothing to lose, and they just really left it all on the court. And they wanted to be the first team to win an NCAA tournament. Men's volleyball obviously goes on and does it later, like a month later. But it's apples and oranges. You can't compare volleyball to basketball and
right.
Who's going to do it. As well as there's also 64 teams in Division III men's basketball, and I don't know, is there 20 that get to the Division III tournament?
It's moved around. I think at that year we went, and they might have only been 14 or 12.
Yeah, so. It was crazy because the next game is an Elite Eight game at that point.
Right.
But this men's basketball team was very good. There's no doubt about it. It's a team effort. There's not like, you could argue that there are superstars between Christo and Q and like you said, Billy Livesey and others, and Jalen's just a great point guard. And that was I was doing book for that game and had there's some good stories there as well. So
again, you can find these replays, but now that we're getting so close to the present day, you can find these replays on our YouTube page now. So if you'd like to go back, you can go back and find them on our YouTube page. But the post game, we did post game interviews on the floor after the NEAC championship. I mean, Zach is crying. Feels him.
Yeah.
I'm sure he loves this now, but he's really emotional because the team cared for each other so much. I mean, Herbie he did the reverse of what Derek was just talking about. Herbie came off the bench his freshman and sophomore year and was just as good his junior and senior year as he was his first 2 years probably, but had to kind of wait his turn. And this is his team this senior year. He wanted it so badly.
Yeah.
And it bled through to the other guys. I mean, Christo was just unreal. He just one of the more freakish athletes we've ever had in the program. Q is really good this year as well, and like we talked about the point guards and good shooting and up and down and guys cheering for one another on the bench. I mean, some of the bench reactions are crazy.
Yeah,
it's just a fun team to be around, and I think to your point, they didn't have the pressure of being undefeated going into the NCAA tournament.
No,
it's just Lancaster Bible. We're from the NEAC. We have to play a road game in the first round. So let's just see what happens. And they really almost did it. And like Zach said, I don't know how F&M was going to guard Christo and Q. And so now your mind races, just like Derek was. I mean, I think Derek's, by the way, right on with the ceiling for the men's volleyball team. I don't know when that would happen, but I think that there's a chance that they could make some noise in an NCAA tournament really, really soon. I don't know if that'll ever happen for our men's basketball team. You'd love to say, I hope so. And I think so. And I think John is the person to lead the program. But like to your point again, there's 64 teams. There's just really, really high level Division III basketball. That's not taking anything away from the Division III men's volleyball.
No.
Springfield could win Division I games for sure.
Yeah.
But you're talking about 6 games you have to win the NCAA men's basketball championship. It's 4 for volleyball, and you know, whatever, the apples and oranges, like you said. The men's basketball team that year, I don't think they were going to win a national championship, but you're not telling me if they play F&M and go to the Sweet 16, now you're really playing with house money, and let's just find out.
Yeah.
It was a really good team. It was a really fun season. It's just, there's a lot of my memories from the Filzen years. A lot of the best ones probably come from this team.
Sure. So, yeah. Sure. Well, and you know, that you often say it takes 2 or 3 years for a coach to be able to get his style of play going and everything. And, you know, the year before, to get to the NEAC final that year was just phenomenal. That, like, how did that happen? It did. And they literally had a chance to win that final to get to the tournament again, but it didn't happen. So, you know, all of a sudden now he comes out and he's recruited some solid players, some young talent, and they come in and they do their thing. So yeah, it was fun and exciting for sure.
This is the fifth straight year we're in the NEAC final. It's the 4th time in the 5 years that we play Morrisville State in the NEAC final. It's just it was a great run, and then that rivalry with Morrisville State is something special. And it was a fun year. So
yep.
Women's basketball 17-9, 15-1 in the NEAC. Unfortunately, they lost to Penn State Abington in the NEAC quarterfinals as the top seed, 67-54. It was a weird game. I looked at the box score there. Just not a whole lot of scoring after Kirsten Webster, Caitlin Hickey, Courtney Goyak. They're all on the first team all conference selections that year. And then we lose in the first round. A couple good winning streaks in the second semester. But we shot 34% in the NEAC quarterfinals, and that wasn't good enough against Penn State Abington, who we had beaten like a drum basically for 3 or 4 years, and they finally got mad enough about it and beat us at home. And that was a pretty deflating loss for the team. But again, not to take anything away, as we look back, Kirsten Webster's almost 18 points a game, Caitlin Hickey's almost 18 points a game, and Courtney Goyak's 14 points a game. So you're talking about 50 points from 3 players. And so that's great until it's the only points you get. And literally those are the only points we got in the NEAC quarterfinal. And it just, you can't do that in certain parts of the year.
Yeah, no, not at all. I remember losing that game, and that is deflating. You know, I'm guessing Vanderhoff, was she coach of the year? Do you recall at all?
I don't recall if she was coach of the year. Possibly, probably.
Quite possibly. You know, because you have such a solid season, you win the South Division, you're 15-1 overall in the NEAC, and you just come in, and sometimes that happens in playoffs. The team that's supposed to win, just something doesn't happen that night, and that was one of those nights that season ended very quickly. So,
right. And we've brought up Kirsten Webster before in a couple of these podcasts, mostly with soccer, a little bit with basketball, but I just want to take 30 seconds. And she overcame a ton of health issues and injuries throughout her time, and she spent parts of years at LBC, then she would leave and come back and leave. And for her to have a senior year like this, 18 points, almost 4 assists a game, and really lead the team that year. Hickey's still a sophomore, Goyak's a junior this year, but leader of the team, is just a really good, solid basketball player, but a good, solid person too. And I think this is what, obviously her best year, but to go from what she had to go through a couple of those years to becoming an all-conference first-team player was a pretty cool thing for her during the 17-18 year.
Yep, no doubt.
So moving last the winter men's volleyball, we kind of talked about with Derek, just kind of bring it home a little bit here for you, but 24-5 overall, 8-0 in the NEAC. Again, beat Altoona in the NEAC semifinals, Wells in the NEAC final, and then beat Riviere in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and then lost to number 1 Springfield in the quarterfinals, the Elite Eight there. 14 straight wins there in March and April, 12-1 at home. Again, all their losses were to ranked opponents. Nate Miller, 498 kills. That led NCAA Division III. He had 55 aces as well. Cole Horst, 219 kills. Casey Gentry, 177 kills. Dan Kreider, who we didn't even talk about with Derek. He was unbelievable in the middle, had 159 kills, 68 blocks. Caleb Ansel had 905 assists. He was really good. Kurt Macias, 235 digs. Bigley, like we talked about, 31 kills, 14 aces, 52 digs, kind of did a little bit of everything. Nate was player of the year in the NEAC, and he was also a first-team All-American as well for the NCAA. So special team, special year. It was amazing how quickly they all gelled together. And like Derek said, it was an awesome ride. It was pretty cool. We're going to get to it here at the end of the podcast. So probably an unanswerable question, but I want to have the discussion about how special it was to kind of go from Christopher Newport there in the beginning of March, and all of a sudden you roll right into men's volleyball season, and you're on that ride then for 5 or 6 weeks. And it was an amazing year, and I'm happy that Derek could provide us some more insight into the year and kind of take us through that. But a great year, great guys, and the culmination of 4 very interesting years for Derek and Sky and a couple of those other guys. So glad they could see the finish line for that after experiencing those early season losses.
Yeah, they next year in men's volleyball, they go on this ride again, and that NEAC championship game is going to have a very different experience. But they bounce back again 2 years later then as well. And there's so many what ifs of this past season of volleyball, but it is just incredible. I think right now, barring pandemic reasons, men's volleyball is just going to be one of our most solid, consistent programs year after year, because winning, when you're a winning program, people want to be around it. And as you already alluded to, like with men's basketball, people want to be around our men's basketball program because of how good they are and the winning that goes on there. The ceiling has been broken wide open for men's volleyball at Lancaster Bible College. There aren't 300 to 400 men's volleyball teams as there are in men's basketball. I forget what the total is in Division III men's basketball. It's like, I don't know, 400 some?
Yeah, probably just under 400, maybe
yeah.
380, something like 390.
Men's volleyball is definitely on the grow. They are adding teams all the time.
Yeah, I think it's over 100 now. I don't know what it is right now, the exact number, but it's way more than even 2017-18.
That's right. And so I just think it's going to get more exciting all the time. A lot of these high school programs are starting to put out some really great men's volleyball athletes. So,
and if you're looking for a good high school boys volleyball, York and Lancaster County is what you're looking for. So that's in our backyard, and that's certainly helpful for Jade as well. So,
yep.
Quickly moving through the spring, the baseball team was 19-14, 9-7 overall in the NEAC. They lost 5-4 to Keuka in the NEAC quarterfinals. This is the year we went 6-0 on spring break, and then had a 10-game winning streak, which is a program record in March as well. Will Welsh hit 444 with 48 hits, 12 home runs, 45 runs knocked in, 41 runs scored, 94 total bases. It's probably his best year.
Yeah.
Sam Taylor hit 444 as well, 59 hits, 15 stolen bases. Jacob Schenk hit 354, 34 hits, 33 runs knocked in. Colin Myers hit 344 with 42 hits. Josh Mayer, who I think was on this team for 8 years, he hit 330 with 37 hits. Adam Koick, 327. Zach Leonard was 3-3 with a 2.87 ERA, almost 60 innings pitched. Noah McMullen, whose name had slipped out of my mind in our history there, he was 5-3 with a 3.92 ERA. So some good pitching, some good hitting. We had beaten Keuka twice during the regular season, so the loss in the quarterfinals, it was a tough game. It was up there, but another postseason berth there for the baseball team as they try to keep building that program up. They certainly have the guys, and they certainly have some talent now. So hopefully excited to see them play this spring. That would be nice. But a good year for baseball there in 2018.
Yeah, it's a program that there's no lack of players. Coach Frank is just recruiting left and right and doing really well. Now it's just continuing to get in key pieces. Division III baseball is just tough, and getting pitchers is tough. And we're seeing that being one of the keys to what baseball is. Having the winning record, getting into the playoffs again. Again, they're at the precipice now. Okay, we're making playoffs. Now we got to win the thing and be able to get on to the D3 World Series. So
absolutely. So kind of a rough rest of the spring here for LBC, but we'll go through it. History is important, Bob.
That's right.
Softball team was 5-31, 2-16 in the NEAC. Had sweeps against Clark Summit and Morrisville State. Katie Kleinhans hit 330 with 33 hits. Morgan Burkholder 316, 30 hits. Nicole DeCook 308, 32 hits. Had 10 doubles as well. Zoe Sen had 30 hits, 24 runs scored. Martina McCulley had 40 strikeouts as a pitcher. Outscored 312 to 111 throughout the year. So not going to win a ton of games that way. But again, a couple good players there who could hit, and a couple players who are still with the program that we'll see how it goes this year if we're able to have some softball. So
Yep, for sure.
Women's lacrosse was 4-12 overall, 3-6 in the NEAC. They started the year 0-5 and 1-10. So they won 3 of their final 5 games. They posted a 15-0 win over Cedar Crest. I think that's the only time we've shut someone out. I'd have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure that's one of our, if not the only, at least one of 2 maybe shutouts.
Yeah.
Miranda Kemmer, 47 goals, 67 points. Hannah Thompson, a very good year, 42 goals, 19 assists, 121 draw controls, 78 ground balls. Reagan Horst, 40 goals. Caitlin Myers, 15 goals. So 3 players with 40 goals or more. I think there was just some struggles there on the defensive side of the field that kind of limited our potential there.
That's definitely been the issue is for lacrosse is getting that defense. And Coach Horst is constantly trying to reevaluate and get in the players that are going to help her get to that next level as well. So it's fun to see. Yeah, you know, you have three players there with 40 plus goals. We need to spread that around even further, but then we need to stop the goals from going in as well. So
absolutely. So women's tennis 6-6 overall, 3-2 in the NEAC. They lost to Penn State Abington 5-3 in the NEAC semifinals. Strange fact from the year, we played a doubleheader on March 30th against Trinity. We won both matches, but they played back-to-back matches because Trinity needed matches, and we had an indoor facility that we were renting at the time, so we were able to do that. Greta Strunk was the NEAC champion for the 2nd straight year. She won 6-1, 6-0 in the final. She was 12-2 in singles that year. It was one of her best years for sure. Haley Fisher was 2nd in the Flight 5 NEAC championships as well. This is Darren Roll's first year as the coach for the men and women's teams. Speaking of the men, they went 4-8 overall, 2-3 in the NEAC. They lost to Penn State Berks 5-0 in the NEAC semifinals. Luke Newberry was 3rd in Flight 1 in the NEAC championships. He was 10-3 in singles play that year. So,
what I'll say is, I again, you know, kind of like Ryan Gaiman, figuring out cross country and helping our student athletes there. I don't know how much Darren really knows about tennis. Obviously, he knows a lot more than I do. And Darren comes in and he somehow really pulls these men's and women tennis players together, and they become quite the crew. So it's fun to watch because the men go on and start doing some stuff the next year that is a lot of fun.
Absolutely. There's just a lot of like off the court stuff. They just gel together and just start winning tennis matches. It's amazing. So homecoming for 2017-18 was on September 30th. 2017, the men's soccer team beat St. Elizabeth 6-1. Rama Mugisha, Caleb Nelson, 2 goals each. Women's soccer beat St. Elizabeth 4-0 as well. Cameron Horst had 2 goals. Reagan Horst had 1 goal. We outshot the Eagles 36-0 that day. Champions that year, Tanner Crow, we mentioned men's cross country, Greta Strunk, women's tennis, and the men's basketball and men's volleyball teams as well.
And Zach, how many years did it take for you and I to know how to say Crow?
That would be 3.5, Bob. Thank you.
It's incredible.
Thank you, Dr. Tagg, for letting me know how to say your family's name. Could use that email like 3 years prior, but go ahead. Thank you.
I know. We always thought it was Krob, but
it was Krob for 3.5 years. It was Crow for the final couple of weeks.
There we go. Yep.
Congratulations. So the categories for this week's episode: best game. A couple of contestants here. Men's soccer, September 27th. So it's a tie. I don't think we've had too many ties featured on the list here. We tied Penn State Berks. LBC trailed 1-0, then 3-2, then 4-3. Jared Jordan scored with 3:49 to go to tie the game, and we ended up tying. I remember this game actually pretty well. We could not get over the hump. We led for a little while, and then we would trail again, and just went back and forth. And Jared Jordan, I mean, did he have 5 goals in his career? I don't really know. It couldn't have been too many.
Well, he really was playing mostly defense for most of his career. He would come
up at the end of games.
Yeah.
When we're losing, and he got a goal. And this was just a really fun game. We ended up beating them in the NEAC quarterfinals at Penn State Berks that season as well.
Yep.
Men's basketball, we mentioned the Morrisville State win, defeating them in the NEAC final. Back and forth game. Herbie had 18 points. It was just a really, really good game. Then the Christopher Newport game as well on March 2nd. Again, trailed by 9 with 2:14 to go and ended up tying it. Again, I would encourage you, if you've got 10 minutes, to go down a YouTube rabbit trail. Go ahead and find that game. It's just a really, really good game. And watch the last couple of minutes. It's really good basketball from both teams.
And Philson would really like you to watch his post-game interview.
Yeah, that's from the NEAC Championship. Go ahead and watch that. Everyone, fun though. I talked to him. I talked to Chris Rich. And I talked to Nick Monroe, and I talked to Luke Beers. Like, it was just a really good hodgepodge of people.
Yeah.
And all just really, really happy. And it was it was a sense of relief to win the 15-16 basketball NEAC Championship, and this was just like joy. Like, hey, we kind of won it. Obviously, you want to win. You made the final. You should.
That's right.
Win. But it was fun. It was fun. So, baseball, March 5th, they beat McDaniel 3-2. It was our first ever win over McDaniel. It was a big early season win for the guys, and just a good, solid victory at home for the team. April 15th, we beat Wells in the NEAC final for men's volleyball. It was an even match. It was pretty close. We won 3-1, but it was pretty close in each of the sets. Our first ever NEAC title. You're not going to want to hear about the Wells NEAC final next week. So enjoy this one. We'll talk about it. And then, again, the Riviere NCAA Division III first round match is our only NCAA tournament win at LBC, and we beat them 3-2. And again, Nate Miller had 41 kills. That is still an NCAA Division III and I think Division I record as well. So unbelievable, and a lot of good games there.
There are a lot of good games. If you're going to have to pick, getting a Division III tournament win is just huge. And like right now, they're the only team. We've had women's soccer, women's basketball, men's basketball, and men's volleyball go to the Division III tournament, and they're the first ones to come back with a W. That's a big game. But all the other games that you mentioned, they're special. That Christopher Newport game, if only. But
absolutely. And then, I don't mean to step on a category here that we're going to go back later, but I did not go to the volleyball.
Yeah, I didn't get up there either.
It was in Massachusetts, so it was kind of like hey, this is going to be a whole weekend thing. And at that point, that part of the spring, like, we've just got home stuff all over. And I think if I could go back and change something, I'd probably take the bus to Springfield, Massachusetts.
Absolutely. Weekend. Yep.
Biggest advancement for LBC is our next category. Just what you were talking about, winning our first ever Division III contest for men's volleyball. We had 4 first-year coaches that year who did some really, really good things, even though most of them were there for a short amount of time, although Allie is still here with us at LBC. And then 4 NEAC championships. So we're going to get to that here in a second in unanswerable questions. But 2 team champions and then 2 individual champions as well. Best memory, the whole trip to Christopher Newport. So I was fortunate enough to go with the team. Pete, myself, and then the team went. And we went down early. I guess we played Friday night. So we went down early Thursday morning, practiced at the Freeman Center, by the way, down there, Christopher Newport.
Nice.
So, yeah, very good. We gave a lot of money. It was just a fun trip. We got to hang out with the guys who are leaders in the Christopher Newport athletic department. We had dinner at a really nice place on campus, and then just kind of hung out with them for a little while. Woke up, got to kind of go through the shoot around with the guys, and we were doing lots of prep work and different things like that. And Pete Stover was there, and and helped out. And we set it all up and just had a great time doing the game. And the game was awesome. And then we, write about it. And, you go back to the hotel. We had dinner. We were, I don't remember where we had dinner, but it was this longest, slowest dinner in recorded history. But it was a really fun trip. And I really enjoyed getting to do that with the guys. I haven't done that very often, just for family and personal. Yep. And there's also lots of home games when the other teams are doing well. It usually bleeds into the other season, so I can't go to certain things. But that was a really fun memory. The NEAC Final Four for men's volleyball, beating Altoona and Wells. Altoona had beaten us so many times in the years prior to this. And it was fun to beat those two specific teams. I mean, it's a good-natured rivalry. There's no ill will there. But if you're going to win your first ever conference championship, you probably ought to just beat the teams that have beaten you so many times before. So, again, the baseball team was fun to watch that year. Every time Will came up to the plate, you thought he was going to hit it a mile. Sam got on base so many times he could steal bases. He's like the only person we've ever had who could steal bases. That was cool. And then Tanner and Greta. Greta had won the year before, but they were both kind of surprises and just kind of kept building this individual part of our individual sports, I should say, just how they kept getting better and better and better. And that was always nice to see too. What are some memories for you, Bob?
Oh, I everything that you've mentioned. I think the biggest thing I remember from the Christopher Newport thing is that, the experience down there was fabulous. I just came down for the day and was able to be there for the game and be a part of it all. Your bus rides were horrendously long. I just remember texting with you and you're like, I can't believe we're not here yet. So, and even coming home, somehow they made this 5-hour trip forever long.
We stopped at, what is it, Zaxby's? Is that the chicken?
Yeah.
So you walk in there on a Saturday afternoon, but there's 20 of us and they're all ordering like lunch and dinner, to keep that on the down low, but they're ordering meals.
Yeah.
And guys, there's only so many chickens in this joint. Like there's other people waiting. The ride down
you guys barely got there for shoot around, I believe.
We took the back way.
I know.
And Pete was so mad. He's sitting in the back, or he's sitting somewhere, just yelling to anyone who will listen. And F&M left after us. And
that's right.
Before us. Oh, it was a whole thing. Oh,
and it was the same bus company.
That's correct. Bring that up with Pete the next time you see him.
I'll be glad to. I will be glad to.
Good luck with that.
Yep. No, the Final Four. It's a story that's probably not appropriate for our podcast today, but when we were playing Altoona and the head coach of Altoona turns around and looks at you and I and just says, how is Nate Miller playing at Lancaster Bible College? And why is he not playing somewhere like in a higher division? And he said it in other ways, which was even, I think, funnier.
Adjectives, Bob. Yes. Adjectives. Describing words.
That is one of those memories. Yep. That will forever be right there.
That was great. Yep. Absolutely great.
Yep.
So, who won the year for the female side of things? Miranda Kemmer, again, 2 sports, volleyball and lacrosse. Sammy Stoner, her only year there, but great runner for cross country. Reagan Horst, women's soccer, women's lacrosse. Caitlin Hickey, women's basketball. Hannah Thompson had a really good year, both volleyball and women's lacrosse, and then Greta Strunk as well. On the men's side, Edward Bills for men's soccer, Tanner Krob, Herbie Brown, Nate Miller, and Will Welsh. Again, a lot of names there that are really high on a lot of our season records or career records. And again, we've talked about Herbie, but from being a 6th man the first 2 years for the program to the leading scorer his final 2 years, just somebody who really, really worked hard on his game, really, really wanted to win. Not the loudest guy ever, but really, really led with his play and really, really wanted to do his best for the team at all times.
How many other LBC students can say, hey, I have played in 4 NEAC championship games? I don't know if there's any others at this point that have done that, but Herbie was a part of 4 teams that all went to the NEAC championships, lost 2-1 too. And, did his role extremely well, from whether he is 6th man or he's a starter, and hard worker. Miranda Kemmer, you just can't say enough good about her too. And I'll even say this, just knowing she has become just a huge supporter of Lancaster Bible College athletics and Lancaster Bible College as our alma mater. I don't know where she's at with her grad work. I know she's working at it at Messiah, but she continues to support the LBC programs. It helps that her brother is involved with men's volleyball and stuff. But I just think that seeing her have a great 4-year experience and then continue to support the school, and other students are doing that too. It's just, I happen to see her name right now. That's why I'm talking about her and stuff. It's just really a cool thing to know her involvement and everything that goes along with that.
Absolutely. And then her family's still at a lot of different events, and they come to different things. And it's a great family, and she's great as well. One thing we would go back and change I wrote down a different defense in the last possession at Christopher Newport. The defense, he just overcommitted by like half a step, like I said. And but again, how are you supposed to know that? But that would probably, I had no idea what was going to happen if we would have beaten. And again, even if that shot doesn't go in, we go to overtime. Maybe we just get killed in overtime, and who knows? Right. But to be able to play F&M in the NCAA Division III tournament, again, 6 hours away, but nevertheless, it would have been a pretty cool. Cool thing.
For sure.
That's probably what I would go back and change.
Yep.
Quickly as we finish up. So I'm going to ask you the question. You've had the question. You've had some time. Was this the best season of sports, not only of the decade, but ever at LBC?
Well, probably. And for the fact that how many years are we a part of the NEAC at this point?
7.
7 in 17-18.
7 seasons. Yeah. So 11-12 was our first year. So what? Okay. 6 or 7.
Yeah. You go back to the time that I was at Lancaster Bible College, we were not a part of Division III NCAA. I know, shocker, right? There were some fun teams back then, but there's no way the teams prior to us joining Division III ever would be doing what the teams are today. These 4 or 5 years that have been like the golden years of this past decade, they become foundational for where Lancaster Bible College athletics can go. It's hard to think about, you mentioned earlier before we fully got started, and we were talking off air a little bit about, what's going to happen in the spring. We have no idea. And it's so hard to think. You and I have done 0 sports this fall, 0. And what will sports be like? The good news is our teams have continued to get together, stay together, practice, and do everything. I don't know what next year will be like, when sports come around, if they come around next year. I don't even know what the spring's going to look like right now. We have no idea. But this year, when you have 2 teams winning NEAC championships, you have 2 individual champions as well. It's hard to beat that. It really is. And then not only do you have 2 teams that win NEAC championships and go to play in the Division III tournament, one of those teams goes on and wins a tournament game, which has never been done in LBC history. So it is a groundbreaking year in a lot of ways. We are still not even at the full gamut of sports that we have in the program yet this year. Mm-hmm. And we continue to add full-time coaches, and these coaches are doing more than just coaching basketball. They're involved with many parts of LBC athletics, but that probably is one of the biggest changes as to why I think a lot of our teams have advanced as far as they have, is because there is somebody committed to that team on a full-time regular basis while they're doing some smaller side jobs, whether it's grounds or something like that, but they are committed to the team that they're working with, not just about winning, but about the spiritual growth. The Derek talked about it really well tonight. Jade cares about these guys, and it is not just about playing volleyball. He wants to see them become men. and he is doing all that he can to help them around and be a part of that. And volleyball is the tool that he's been gifted with to do it. And so, I'm excited to see where men's volleyball is going to go here long term. Yeah, absolutely.
And again, I guess I would just answer the question was I posed the question because I think the answer is yes. So I think to all the things you just said, the amount of on the floor, on the field success with 4 champions, 2 individual, 2 teams, winning an NCAA tournament game with men's volleyball. And I mean, if you want to be picky about it, we lost by fewer points in men's basketball in the NCAA tournament this year than we did the years prior. I think though, and Derek kind of drove this home for me, just like you said, and I can spread it across other teams, but the off the court or off the field of play or in the classroom stuff is better this year. I think the year we're thinking about is 15-16 in comparison to what it just from basketballs to the baseball team being really good that year and every team except for one making the NEAC playoffs. I think only 2 missed it this year. So I think though there's just so much more depth to the programs in 17-18 than there were in 15-16 in terms of our full-time coaches, to your point, are in multiple years now at LBC, the Sherrys of the world, the Filzens, Jade,
Tommy Art,
Vanderhoffs, Tommy, like there's just much more awareness of what it takes to have a program rather than a team. And I think that's the one thing that 17-18 kind of brings out. I mean, again, we joked, but like the Filzen interview doesn't happen after the 15-16 team. The stories of Jade this year are after 4 years of bleh. But you have to build to that. And there's the care that these coaches have for their programs really comes out when you talk about some of these teams. Again, we have their records, we have their games, but I mean, and you can pick out people, but I'm looking at Jacob Shank's name. Jacob Shank and I had the same amount of at-bats his freshman year. I don't play. But he turned himself into a 354 hitter with 34 hits and 33 runs knocked in. The guy lived in the cages and
yes, he did.
Decided, okay, Coach Horn, if this is how it's going to be for me to get a playing spot, then that's what I'm going to do. Herbie going from the bench to the best player. 3 different point guards sharing time on the basketball team. Kirsten Webster overcoming everything that she did. The list goes on and on. Reagan playing on how many knee surgeries at this point? Like 15? Like, so you just have these players who over and over again are overcoming these obstacles, using what they're learning in the classroom, using their teammates to build themselves up and grow that way. And then our full-time coaches and any coach, really, I'm not trying to take anything from Darren or Ryan. We say full-time, but these coaches, the care, the joy that they have doing their sport. For all the jokes we made about Phil's and being a basketball junkie, we just talked about Ryan. If you get Ryan talking about running, I hope you have a while.
Because goodness.
But it makes him the best coach. It made him such a good coach to be able to have that and to give that to his student athletes. Yeah. And it grows the platform. We've talked about this every single week. All of these things are so that we can grow LBC's platform and hopefully change some lives, whether that be on our own team, in our own programs, or other programs, or just to get our name out there. Like, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
This is what LBC Athletics is about. We can do these things, and then we can do these things.
You know, I think some of the things that you and I get to see behind the scenes too is also how Lancaster Bible College sports affects the greater community. You know, we talked about the 15-16 men's basketball team and how the community started following them. But then even on top of this, now Lancaster Bible College is really starting to make an impact on the NEAC as a whole too. There is recognition from the other programs, the other schools that are involved in our conference, and acknowledging that with stuff that we're not even mentioning here. But you know, getting emails from other ADs and fans from other schools that are represented in the NEAC, particularly like on championship weekends, saying, man, you guys ran a great tournament. You're doing something well. We appreciated your fans and stuff like that. We don't always get it right. And there's times that I'm talking to our fans saying, hey, let's hold off here a little bit of what we're doing, that they're getting a little bit too involved, more involved than they need to in the game. But the whole idea that we do have the opportunity to represent Christ in whatever we're doing. And it's been fun to see athletics really do that. Lancaster Bible is also known for like its musical program. That is something that has grown even during these 10 years as well. And so it's not the same school that I went to, and that's okay. But it's still the Bible college that I went to. That the heartbeat is still there. The platform is different, and it's an opportunity to go and proclaim Christ. You know, the athletic department takes it very seriously what the school mission is all about.
Absolutely. So I guess you should mention, and you're talking about the NEAC, this is the first year of 3 straight that we won the NEAC President's Cup for success, all sorts of different places in the NEAC, whether it be in the classroom, in the community, on the field, and just kind of different things we do. So, you know, this is the first of 3 straight. And again, the goal is not to win that, but I think one of Pete's quotes when one of the years we won is just, we're trying to do these little things every single day. And if it results in stuff like that, then great. If it doesn't, then we're just going to try to keep getting better with those types of things. So
yeah,
I think to your point, as long as that heartbeat is still there, we're going to try to grow this platform as big as we can get it, and try to keep having student athletes who are willing to go out there and live out their faith the best way they can. So
yep.
It's great.
And I hope people are seeing that too, even with some of the student athletes that we've brought back on the show. It's one thing Absolutely. To bring a coach back, but to have a Derek Bigley and Courtney and Hannah, you know, they're going out and they're making it different in their communities and their worlds. And part of that is, you know, just the LBC experience that they had, and athletics was a big part of that. I love that Derek goes, hey, you know, if you want me to talk about my LBC experience, like there's so much more I could say about how great it was. That's so cool to hear. That was not us like, you know, Derek, if you get a chance, say this. That was completely unscripted on his.
Absolutely. And I think the best part is, and probably even for yourself, who's a graduate of the school, if you'd have told yourself in the early 90s when you were there, like, hey, in 20 years or 25 years, someone's going to graduate from here and they're going to work in a church, but they're not going to be a pastor. They're going to be the digital media person. You'd be like, what's digital media? Yeah. Like, but to your point, he's working at a church. He's using his faith. He's using his academic, you know, his degree. It's all the things we talk about, but it's a different feel, and it's kept up with the times, and it's it's a great story to tell.
Yeah, so, for sure.
Great. So. Well, thanks, Bob. 2017-18 is in the books. We are heading to 18-19, and then we're going to do 19-20, sort of. And then we'll do a final one. We talk about the kind of a future podcast as well. Yeah. What lies ahead. So still a couple more to go here this semester, and hoping to bring this plane down here in the next couple of weeks. But another fun one this week, and looking forward already to next week. So thanks a lot, Bob.
Great. Yep.
Go Chargers, go.